Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 4 Voyager class Bludgeon. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have the Legacy Evolution logo. At the bottom of the box, we have Comic Universe Bludgeon in white text with a white Decepticon symbol. We have a really cool image of Bludgeon in his tank mode with an open window displaying the figure. In the packaging, if we do look at the top of the box, we have another Legacy Evolution logo and a QR code. If you do scan that, that'll show his stats. If we do look at the side of the box, we have two really cool artwork shots of Bludgeon, both in his robot mode. One more of a close-up of his head and chest, and one more of a wide shot with his sword or katana. And if we do look at the back of the box, the figure transforms in 27 steps. There's a proc shot showing him in his robot, his tank mode, and his Evo Fusion gimmick that I will be showing off at some point during this review. And on the final side, we have half of the Legacy Evolution artwork. So if you do get another Voyager from this Legacy Evolution line and put both boxes together, you can complete the artwork. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. So here we have Bludgeon in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with the head sculpt. Like the dark red for the entire samurai-inspired helmet design, with a really cool gunmetal gray for the crest, and the really cool kind of vent intake sections on the side of the face as well, with some really cool silver for the face itself, with some really cool dark red piercing eyes looking very menacing and scary. And I do like the dark red for the entire internal detailing in the mouth, with the really cool tank treads at the shoulder, and some more green for the entire forearm guard, with some really nice gunmetal gray for the hand and the bicep, with some dark red for the entire front of the arm. So all those details I just mentioned for the shoulder and the arm are really good, but I definitely think Hasbro could have added just a bit more to most of the parts of this figure and this character, because as I just mentioned, all the details of the head sculpt and the head, it actually has this really cool kind of samurai ninja inspired helmet design, which is cool and all. That's typically actually how we do see Bludgeon. He's very ninja-like, very stealth-like, very sleek, which I always actually relate. I think he's probably one of my favorite Decepticon characters of all time, but for this specific character, how they did this figure wasn't the best, because of course they did that really cool ninja helmet design for the head sculpt, but they kind of gave up for the rest of the figure. Like, you don't see that same theme continued, you know, for the tank mode or this robot mode. I think they really could have added some cool like armor pieces or panels, you know, to the shoulders and the forearms, you know, maybe some on the legs. So I definitely think that was a missed opportunity. Let me know your thoughts on this matter in the comments below. But now, looking at the chest, we have some really cool bright orange and some really cool kind of burning orange, dark red effect in these kind of windscreen sections there. And there's actually this really cool kind of illuminating sort of lava type design at the stomach region, with some really cool silver as well, with a very classic Decepticon symbol done in dark purple. They did the same kind of effect and design for Tarn on his stomach as well, but with that figure, of course, it was kind of matching his color scheme and deco. It was kind of a dark energon bluish purple, but both actually look really cool. I hope they can use this effect and design more in the future. But if we do look at the knees, mostly done in orange and gray, and some more orange for the feet, and some gunmetal gray for the ankles. And if we do look at that side profile there, if you do have Tarn, you kind of know what to expect with this side profile. Overall, so clean, so sleek and compact. So impressed. Probably one of the best Voyager backpacks I've pretty much seen in the past like 5 to 10 years, of course, including Tarn as well, because they are the same mold. But as far as the actual back, so well filled in, very little hollow gaps, no waffling. He does have a few hollow spaces in the back of the feet, but I can actually fully understand that if you don't know why those are there, is because you actually do hinge the feet up due to transformation. You actually have to have that hollow space. I guess if they wanted to, they probably could have put an extra panel there, but do keep that in mind. If they put a panel there, it might actually have the tank mode a bit more compromised, a bit more ugly. There might be a bit more panels and stuff hanging around. So honestly, probably this might be the best way they could have done it. If I were to be, you know, pretty picky, you know, if I were to be very technical of this figure, this is at least on my copy anyway. Maybe other people's copies could be a bit different, but the forearm guards on my copy don't really like to stay in place during when I show the articulation. I do apologize if the forearm guards move, because technically, I'm pretty sure for everyone's copy, this was the same on Tarn, except his tolerances were a bit better. But the forearm guards really don't lock into place. There is no tab or clip system. They kind of just rely on them staying there. And for for the most part, I think Tarn was fine. Actually, most of his tolerances, at least on my copy of Tarn, are pretty good, but for Bludgeon, unfortunately, I was a bit unlucky. Most of the other tolerances across the rest of the figure are good, but they do typically like want to move just randomly. You know, leaving the figure there, they're fine, but when posing it around, that's kind of a different case. So I think it would have been nice to just had like a small little tab or kind of locking mechanism. That probably would have been for the best. But I do like the really cool kind of turrets or kind of blasters on the back, because from the front on perspective, I think it looks pretty cool how they're kind of sticking out of the shoulders there. I always really like that. I think that looks really cool. But that is it for details. So now for articulation, I would say it's overall pretty much the exact same thing as Tarn, because, you know, the only new tooling is the head sculpt, and even then it's pretty much the same. But starting at the head sculpt, of course, the head can look up and down, tilt side to side, look left and right. The arms can move in and out, forward and back. There is a bicep rotation, there is an elbow bend to a very good degree. There is also a really stiff wrist rotation, at least on my copy, really stiff there. And also the fingers can actually open. If you're wondering kind of the style of the finger articulation, you know, all 4 fingers are kind of attached and the thumb is stock. So a good example would be kind of like Earthrise Optimus Prime. If you have that figure, pretty much the finger articulation is the exact same with this figure as well. And if we do move the arms out of the way, he does have a waist rotation, but unfortunately it is slightly hindered. It's technically not like a full 360 rotation. It is actually blocked and hindered by this entire backpack. That was the same as Tarn, so I'm not really, I would say, surprised or anything like that. But all they really needed to do was to fix this, you know, Tarn as well, is all they really needed to do was have the entire backpack kind of sit just a tad bit further up on the backpack, and it would have been fine. So I was always kind of bothered by that because it's such a simple, easy fix. But not the biggest deal, because you might be wondering, does that backpack, you know, get in the way of the articulation of the legs or any other area? No. Really, the only thing that actually stops or hinders is the waist, so definitely not the biggest deal. And speaking of the legs can kick forward, back, out to the side. There's also rotation at the top of the leg, and there is a knee bend to a very good degree. And as for the foot, of course, there is an ankle pivot. There's also a pivot forward and back. And let me just quickly straighten up the figure. And as far as Tarns go, I kind of, you know, earlier mentioned this in the review, but I'll just kind of recap it. But, you know, really my only complaint is, you know, the forearm panels. Typically, you know, when Hasbro kind of retools, you know, a pre-existing mold or figure into a new one, a lot of people want to know, has the mold or the, you know, figure held up? And I think for the most part, yes, it has. Really, just at least, you know, in my experience with my copy of Bludgeon, the forearm panels could be just a tad bit more secure. But that is it for articulation. So now for accessories, Bludgeon includes one katana sword, which I think overall looks pretty cool, mostly done in silver, and I do like the really cool shapes and kind of gashes or slashes at the tip of the blade. And if you're a long-time viewer of the channel, you know I actually really love melee weapons, you know, swords, shields, axes, always really like that. And this can actually be stored in 2 different ways. So if you do flip the figure all the way around, there is actually a mechtic port on the back there, and there is a post on the actual sword, and you can just plug this into place like that. I think that looks pretty cool, kind of draped over his back. And if you wanted to, you could actually swivel this to be pointing the other way. You could actually have it pointing straight down if you wanted to. And if you want to see what this looks like from the front, you can actually see the blades kind of going out the back there, and I think that looks pretty cool. Probably one of my favorite ways of displaying this accessory. And of course, the main way, the last way you can display the sword is in either hand, just like that, and you can just slide it in, and I think that looks pretty cool in my opinion. And as for his artillery, his blasters, he does come with the same 2 blasters that came with Tarn, and that connector piece, of course, this time just done with Bludgeon's deco, so the orange and the silver. And the first way is his Evo Fusion gimmick, which is the exact same way, or one that Tarn had, and I think that looks pretty cool. And both blasters are blast fit piece compatible, in case you're wondering. I do like that really cool kind of illuminating orangish red effect with a really cool silver and glossy black. So if you wanted to, you could actually remove the sword, you know, put that off to the side or on his back, and have him holding this huge, you know, cannon of death, which I think is just an okay Evo Fusion gimmick. Never been my favorite, it's just okay. And just putting that off to the side. Another way you can display these blasters is actually storing them on the back, which does require a bit of modification and transformation. So if you do flip the figure all the way around. You actually do have to grab both these turrets. There is a tab right there and a slot on the inside of the turret, so just tab that into place and do the exact same thing with the other one. Just soft click that into place, and if you of course grab the turrets, you can use that same post and port system that we're used to and plug that into place like that, and just flip that back around, and you can have the cannons pointing a bit more up, a bit more down, really entirely up to you. And I think that looks pretty cool in my opinion. And there is actually a third way you can display these blasters, which is definitely my favorite. So of course you do have to go back here, remove this entire section like that, and then you can grab the turrets. You can actually put them back to how they originally were, so kind of sticking up over the back like that, and just flip the figure back around. And this is actually where the entire kind of adapter connector piece comes into place. You're going to want to make sure this post is actually sitting further back and not far forward, because this entire section actually can rotate. And then you're of course going to grab both blasters, just split them like that. And you might be wondering, because the blasters are of course on first appearance pretty much identical, but they actually are different, because this entire kind of mount section, this one points up, but the other one actually points to the side. So of course for the blaster, you're going to make sure this mount is facing up and the other one is to the side, of course not the other way around. Make sure not one of them is facing down, and that is how you can of course combine all the pieces to form this really cool kind of double barrel blaster. And this can attach to any mech port across the entire figure, but typically how Hasbro shows it and how I do it is on the form there. You can do either arm, really doesn't matter, but there we have all the accessories attached to Bludgeon. Let's now get down to some comparisons. Starting off our comparisons, here we have Bludgeon compared alongside the other Voyager from Legacy Evolution Wave 4, that being the Legacy Evolution Trashmaster. I think they look pretty cool side by side, and let me know in the comments of the two Voyagers of Wave 4, which one do you like more? So here we have a quick Bludgeon on Bludgeon comparison. So here we have the Legacy Evolution Bludgeon compared alongside the Revenge of the Fallen Bludgeon. And I definitely think it was due time for an updated or a new Bludgeon figure. And I definitely think this Legacy Evolution release does that 100%. I still think it's actually pretty cool to have two versions of the same character. One from the modern day Legacy Evolution line and one from the old movie line. And now for one final comparison, here we have the Legacy Evolution Bludgeon compared alongside his moldmate, that being the Legacy Evolution Tarn. And let me know in the comments of the two versions of this mold, which one do you prefer? And you might be wondering what's the difference in the tooling and molding. The only change in molding between Tarn to Bludgeon is the head sculpt. Also, they did add an accessory to Bludgeon, that being the sword accessory, which is attached to his back right now. And that's pretty much it for comparisons. Let's now get down to transformation. So now for transformation, what you want to do is rotate at the biceps. The entire front red section is actually facing into the figure, and then you can grab the form. You're just going to hinge this entire section back like that, and then you can grab the hand. You're just going to rotate this entire section all the way around so the open palm is now facing towards you. You're going to repeat all those exact same steps on the other arm. So again, just rotate at the biceps. The entire front red section is actually facing in towards the figure. Then of course you can grab the forearm panel. This is just going to hinge back like that, and then of course you're going to grab the hand to make sure the open palm is facing towards you like that, and then you can grab both arms and hinge them up like that and like that. And how you know you did it correctly is just make sure, of course, both the green forearm panels are actually facing up or towards you like that. And then of course you can flip to the back of the figure. You're actually going to grab both turret sections. There is a tab right there and a slot right there, and of course same connections on the other side, and you're just going to tap both cannons or turrets into place like that. And then you can untab this entire backpack turret section like that. Just kind of loosen both connections on both sides like that, and just hinge this entire section down. And then you're going to rotate it around. And how this entire panel was tabbed in place is there are slots on these tread pieces, and of course tabs underneath that panel. And then you're just going to hinge this entire panel up, so of course it reveals this entire cavity. And you're actually going to grab the head and of course just tuck the entire head section into that cavity. So just fold this entire section back like that into that cavity. Make sure it's all the way in like that. And then you can actually go back to the front of the figure. You're actually going to hinge the feet down fully like that. And then you can actually go to the shoulder. You're actually going to fully extend or kind of bring out the shoulders like that. As you can see, there's a hollow space for both shoulders now. And of course, there is a slot on the inside of the shoulder, and of course a tab pretty much where the main body or the main section of the figure is. And you're just going to grab both shoulders and hinge these back like that. It's a pretty strong connection. Just hinge those back. And then all the while, just make sure this entire turret section is out of the way. This part of the transformation is probably the most complex and messy, so I hope I can show the steps as smooth and easy as possible. I hope you can understand, but you're just going to hinge these back all the way and into place like that. Just make sure they're kind of level with the back of the legs. And as you can see, of course, there is a tab there and a notch right there, and that's just going to tab into place. And then you can flip this around. There is a post underneath, and of course there is a port pretty much where the butt region of the figure is, and you're just going to hinge that down and tab that into place like that. And then you can actually go back to the front. You're going to untab the leg from the knee like that. And then you can fold this section back to the exact same step on their side. So untab the leg from the knee, hinge this entire section back, and then you can flip it around. You're going to tab both legs together like that. And there is a slot pretty much on the front of the arm, and there is a tab on the side of the leg, and that is just going to tab into place like that. Do the exact same thing on the other side. Just tab the arm into the leg like that. And then you can go to this tread section. You're actually going to untab it from the shoulder, flip this panel out and down. And how all this is tabbed into place is there is a tab there and a slot right there. And as for that panel, there is a tab on the inside of the panel, and of course a slot pretty much on the inside of that tread piece. And you're just going to fully push this back and of course kind of complete the side of the tread for the tank mode. So just hinge this entire section back. You might want to go underneath and of course fully collapse that. There's a tab there, and of course a slot pretty much on the form, and that will just tab into place like that. And you're going to repeat all those steps I just showed you all on the other side. So of course open up this entire panel, untab the tread of course from that tread, and just fold this entire section back and into place, tab that in. And now, of course, you're just going to fully hinge down the legs. As you can see, there is two tabs and corresponding slots on pretty much the underside or the back side of the leg. So just fold that down and tab all of that in to place. Make sure everything is nice and secure and tabbed in. And that is pretty much it for transformation. But as you can see, of course, the tank mode is definitely not complete without his turret, and that's where the accessories come into play. I'm actually going to move the camera down so you can see what I am doing. So of course, you're going to bring in the weapons. There is two tabs here, and of course 2 slots on the actual tank, and that will just slide into place like that. And as for the sword, it's really entirely up to you how you want to display this. There is mech-tick ports pretty much across the entire tank. I typically like to put on the side. There is a post and there is a port right there, and you can just plug that into place. And that is it for accessory storage and transformation. Let's now take a look at the details. Here we have Bludgeon in his tank mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, I do like that really nice dark orange and red color for the entire front grill section there, with some really cool silver for the spikes and some really cool gunmetal gray for this entire kind of vent or intake section there, with a very classic Decepticon symbol done in dark purple, with some really cool cannons at the front, which are blaster base compatible. And I do like this shade of kind of a gunmetal gray color they use for those. And I do like the tank treads on the side done in gunmetal gray and glossy black, with some really cool kind of illuminating orangish red on the side, with some really nice green here and there all across the entire tank. I do love this huge entire top turret section done with some really nice glossy black, silver, and orange. And if we do look underneath the tank, you might be wondering, does this tank mode or alt mode have rolling wheels? Unfortunately, it does not. That was one of the main complaints people had with the original version of this mode, that being Tarn. I think it is a valid complaint. The tank mode probably should have some rolling wheels, but it never really bothered me that much. I still think it's a very decent figure. And another one of the complaints a lot of people had a problem with Tarn, and this one as well, is the exposed hands at the back. This probably bothers me more than no wheels. That's just my opinion anyway, but that is it for details. And of course, I already did cover accessory storage. As for articulation and posability, the entire top turret section actually can rotate a full 360, and you can somewhat move the turret slightly up and down, which is a pretty nice feature. And that is it for posability. So now for some alt mode comparisons. Here he is with his mold mate, to that being the Legacy Evolution Voyager class Tarn. And I think they look pretty cool side by side. And for one final comparison, here he is with his waymate, that being the Legacy Evolution Voyager class Trashmaster. And that is pretty much it for comparisons, so let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for my final thoughts on the Transformers Legacy Evolution Wave 4 Voyager class Bludgeon. Starting in the robot mode, Bludgeon is using the Legacy Evolution Voyager class Tarn mold with a brand new head sculpt and sword accessory. Bludgeon's deco is made up of a really nice bright orange, green, and gunmetal gray with really cool tank tread detailing at the shoulder and an awesome samurai style helmet design for the head sculpt. As for accessories, Bludgeon includes one katana sword which can be stored on his back or held in his hand. Bludgeon also includes the same two cannons that were included with his moldmate Tarn, which can be stored in several different ways. As for articulation, Bludgeon is one of the most posable Voyager class figures I've seen in a long time. Transformation is the exact same as Tarn, so if you have that figure, you know exactly what to do. As for Bludgeon's alt mode, the tank has several rows of turrets with a really cool rotating cannon at the top of the tank and rolling wheels underneath. My one complaint about the tank mode is that the robot mode hands stick out of the back of the alt mode, open and exposed. What do you think of this figure? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.